Darren, it's March 2025, and I'm here in the study with my very important helper who's actually been on a long walk with me this evening, but that is another story. I'm here to tell you about a slightly sad event, but we're going to see how the multi-camera setup goes as well. I'm going to try and explain why I have bought a horrendously expensive Apple MacBook Pro laptop only to return it. So we've got the Mac Mini M2 Pro, which not drawn to scale, and the ports are all on the back, you do understand. The Mac Mini Pro has got a number of Thunderbolt ports, Thunderbolt 4 ports on the back, and this is a CalDigit 4 Thunderbolt 4 hub. So this is connected to a good quality microphone, good quality webcam, and by the way, some older things like serial ports which drive vintage computers from the 1970s and 1980s, because that's how old some of us are. Still working. It's also got a TerraMaster disk unit which has got 4 M2 drives in it and 4 SSD bays which can either contain SSDs or spinning disks. So it's got 4 SATA bays. Sorry, it's got 4 SATA bays. And that all works absolutely fine. The 10 gigabit network works great. So in our home, we have segregated networks for different things. We have a 10 gigabit network between fast systems, totally secure, there's no wireless involved, multiple firewalls, and then we have a moderately secure wireless network and wired network. And then we have a third network, which is the insecure IoT network. And all of those 3 networks are completely separated with different wires and joined with some pretty aggressive firewalls so that they can't talk between each other. So this all works fine. And the idea is to replace this with a more performance system. So how do we get on? So having spent a preposterous amount of money on this Apple MacBook Pro M4 Max, and by preposterous I'm meaning 3,000, sorry I'm trying not to swear, 3,000 or so pounds. The computer arrived, plugged it in, thought everything was going to work. It did not all work. What didn't work? So the first thing was to try and change the config so that everything plugs into the CalDigit 4 Thunderbolt hub, and that's basically where the problems started. So there's a special wire coming out of here, and instead of using the supplied power adapter and the special MagSafe power supply, you can power the MacBook Pro from a Thunderbolt cable, and indeed that works fine. So these are Thunderbolt 5 ports here. There's multiple Thunderbolt 5 ports, and the initial configuration, because I wanted to have you want to be able to take the laptop, just dock it with a single cable like you see on all the YouTube videos of all the big time YouTubers. And I didn't want to use the HDMI socket here. I wanted to drive the 2 4K screens from the CalDigit hub as well as the TerraMaster disk unit. Now I realised that the Thunderbolt 4 connection with all of these interfaces might slow it down a little here, but as a proof of concept to get it working initially, and then we could talk about the performance later. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. So the TerraMaster, when connected to the USB 3.2 port of the CalDigit, as opposed to the Thunderbolt 4 port, or in this case Thunderbolt 5 port, doesn't see all the disks. It's got something to do with initiators and some sort of protocol error, whereby bizarrely, if you take the same, there's only one port on this device, if you take the same cable, in fact the Thunderbolt 4 cable, you would detach it from the CalDigit and reattach it to the Thunderbolt 5 socket of the MacBook Pro, it works, which is great, except that what you actually want one wire here. So that's a pain, but it's a workaround. It would be that you take the TerraMaster and you could plug it in there. In the existing configuration, there are 2 4K screens, and one of them is driven via a adapter on the back of the Mac Mini, and one of them is coming out of the Cal Digit. So here I'm showing you the fact you've got a Thunderbolt 4 port with a USB to HDMI adapter driving a 4K screen. That works fine. I then bought and the Cal Digit 4 has got a display port on the back. So I've got a display port to HDMI adapter with the screen on it. It just doesn't work. So I thought, oh, okay, let's try something else. So that didn't work. So there's a second thing that didn't work. So I thought very cleverly that these 4K screens have got AirPlay attached to them. So why couldn't I do it wirelessly? So I could completely remove this wire and talk from the MacBook Pro to the 4K screen using AirPlay. And that did sort of work for a while, but it would just sort of randomly stop working. I mean, the TV, by the way, is connected. I tried TV connected via Ethernet, not Wi-Fi. So the TV is connected to the, I had to put the moderately secure network. And then I'd connect the second screen. But when I would suspend the MacBook Pro or power up the MacBook Pro, the second screen would never be available. You had to go into this control panel, add the screen, and then that would have been kind of a pain but workable. But what I wasn't expecting is that occasionally I'd just be working and the screen would just disappear. Or whenever I suspended it and tried to resume it, or sleep it and tried to resume it, it would definitely disappear. So again, this was not a workable system. So I ended up, have I got a screen copy of this? I ended up, this was the working configuration. We have the TerraMaster connected. So this is not true. This is the TerraMaster. The TerraMaster is connected into here. There's a Thunderbolt 5. There's a Thunderbolt 5, and you've got the Cal Digit 4 with the webcam, the mic, a single screen. You've got an HDMI cable with a 4K, and you've got the TerraMaster connected into the MacBook Pro M4 Max. And so now we've got the now what are the issues with this? The first issue is it's very fiddly. So if this MacBook Pro is being used as a portable device and also a sort of central server system or workstation, every time you dock it, you've got to dock these 3 cables, and that's an absolute right pain. The other thing is about using the MacBook Pro instead of the Mac Mini. If the lid is closed and you apply power, in other words, we have a smart home, so I can issue a voice command which switches on all the power adapters to the screens, to the Cal Digit 4, to the TerraMaster. They're all switched on individually, and via routine, all these power adapters switch on. And so the Cal Digit 4 switches on, it applies power to the MacBook Pro, but the lid's closed, so nothing happens. Now, if you leave the lid open, then when I issue in fact a SmartThings routine to switch on all of these devices at the mains, then when power is applied, you can do a MacBook Pro setting which says when the power state changes, switch on, and that works fine. So you think, we've got a working system now. We leave the system where it is. We use a separate system. We use the Mac Mini as a separate system. We use the MacBook Air as a separate portable system. This stays in the home or in the study at all times as a workstation. We connect all these wires. One 4K screen is being driven by a big fat HDMI cable. Second 4K screen is coming out the Thunderbolt port with a USB to HDMI adapter. You've got the webcam, you've got the mic, you've got a single Thunderbolt 4 cable that powers the MacBook Pro, and you've got the disk unit coming into a separate Thunderbolt 5 socket, and this is in fact a USB 3.2 connection. So then the only moan I've got is really that this is a dust situation, because this is open and if every time you want to keep the dust out of the system, you've got to keep opening and closing the lid. So basically you have to lift the lid, execute the routine which switches all these devices on. Power will come onto the system. As soon as the system starts to power up, you can close the lid. And so you basically work wearing out the lid. And or you leave the lid open and you've got a dust problem. So it's not a very big compromise, but I am not happy with it. So I've sent the MacBook M4 Max back. I'm considering the alternatives in the Apple world, and I'm going back to really wanting separate systems. And why is that an important factor? Well, if you have this super uber laptop which can do everything, then it might be great, but it's also a single point of failure. So if someone steals the laptop, then even though if I'm out and someone steals the laptop, although all the data is stored on the external disk unit, so hardly any data is stored on the MacBook Pro, everything will be on this disk unit, okay, then you're missing a system. And if you don't have another system as a backup, all of this infrastructure is dead until you find a new Mac system. So, or if the system was to fail, you've got the same problem. So it's not as resilient, there's no redundancy, and if there's a theft, there's an issue. So I still think it's better to go back to a system that's like this, where we've got a workstation here. This is the workstation. And you've got the portable system, which at the moment for me is a MacBook Air. And actually that system is quite capable of running iMovie, for example, with an external webcam, an external microphone. So we're back at the moment to this setup, and we'll have to rethink.